Hi guys, and welcome to Samsung Now. Samsung Now is where we look at all things Samsung, anything Samsung related, and tech and gaming, and anything in between that we can think of. Today is one of those days where we do a review. We normally do these on Friday, but we're sort of spreading them out a bit, mainly because, I don't have that much stuff available to review. Not everyone gets free stuff sent to them. So if you want to send me free stuff, Samsung or anyone, just send it. But for now, I have to pay for this all myself. And one of the things I'm going to review today is the Denon AVR X2400W. Now that's a very catchy name, isn't it? To you and me, it's an AVR amp that allows us to set up a 5.1 or an Atmos setup. Denon, just the reason why I'm sort of doing this review of an older product, because Denon just released the AVR X2400H, which is the newer version, is that the newer version is not worth buying. You're going to save yourself, I just looked on Richer Sounds, and it's now the AVR X2300W is now at $330. The newer version, the X2400H, is at £500. So you're going to save yourself, £170 just by watching this review. So I'm going to explain why you don't need it, why you don't need to go for the newer one, and why the older one is the better one, and just a much better value for money. So what is the AVR X2300W? God, these names, these crazy names. Basically, it's one of the first batch of Atmos enabled AVR amps to allow you to watch not just in 5.1 but to have an Atmos enabled setup too, which is height speakers which bounce off the ceiling, or if you have them installed in the ceiling, which is even better if you fancy, sort of beam down to you. And what they add, what Atmos does, is it adds a spatial element above you, not just around you. And this makes for a very immersive, encompassing sound. It's one of those things, much like, you don't, until you hear it and experience it, you really don't, you really don't kind of get it until you actually feel and hear it. If you've gone to any sort of modern cinema in the last sort of few years, you would have likely heard it. Maybe not as paid much attention to it, because cinemas are just so well set up, so you're kind of used to and expect that. But at home, it's more of a palpable experience because you're not used to having that at home. But it really does, when it's on a great Atmos enabled track, you do get this whole sort of not just feeling of space above you in terms of where sound is, but actually be able to sort of pinpoint areas. So when something flies over, say an aircraft for instance, it doesn't just sort of end up from one speaker to the other, it's just sort of coming this way with you. It's coming over you as well, so you get this real sense of it being located in a space area above you too. So that's the reason why Atmos is such a great thing, and it's relatively easy to set up. I'll just quickly go over some of the aspects of the AVR 2300. Needless to say, I've got it all written down because I can't remember. It's and I'm not going to go through this entire list. The main things: power output is 95 watts over 7 channels. It's Dolby Pro Logic surround, does all the main ones. It has the ability to convert. This is one of the things I make out in the video where I'm explaining where I'm going through the AVR, showing it to you. But it has this thing called DTS-X, which is basically Dolby's sort of premium DTS processor. It's a bit like Atmos. It renders sound in a more immersive fashion. But unlike Atmos, so if you don't have Atmos, if it's not an Atmos enabled track, it will it will create it for you out of a standard 5.1, which is one of the key things. The reason why I got it was because, you know, there's not that many Atmos enabled Blu-rays out there right now. Not too many, or certainly not the ones I want to watch and spend, you know, 20 quid on buying a 4K Blu-ray. So, you know, I still want to get that as much as possible, and I use Sky Q, the 4K service from Sky, and, you know, a lot of those, majority of them are sent out in 5.1. So to have the AVR sort of convert it and make it more of an Atmos enabled audio track, then, you know, to me that's a great thing. It does an okay job. It's not as good as it's going to be with a proper Atmos enabled audio from a Blu-ray, but it does a pretty decent job. It's got high resolution audio if you want to set it to that. So if you're listening to music, say I've got a vinyl turntable connected to it, so I can connect it to that and have that setting, and it's great, does a great job. Has THX certification, you know, which for the money is great. You know, it was initially this was £500 last year. It's now £330. So it's a great bargain. We have full 4K on all channels on the HDMI. It does upscaling really well. Not that you need it, but say if you're feeding it a lower source, it will do a much better job. Certainly, say with the Switch, it does a great job with that. It's 3D ready as well. So those are the main aspects of it, really. You know, it's a great sounding AVR amp. That's the thing that you want to really know. It's not perhaps the most musical. It's more, I think, suited more to movies than, say, music. Still sounds great with music, you know, I've got my turntable connected to it. But the key difference between the X2300W and the newer one, the X2400H, is that the newer one has what is Denon's multi-room tech called HEOS. And yeah, it's all right. It's not great, but it's certainly not worth 170 quid over. The sound of the newer one is perhaps a little bit better, but it's so incremental that I would really strongly recommend spending that money on Blu-rays, 4K Blu-rays, and getting the lower version. So, you know, it is a great AVR amp. There's additional things that I'm covering in the sort of the second part of this video, where I'm sort of taking you through some of the aspects. But really, if you're serious about movies and you don't want to spend a fortune on an AVR amp, because they can go up to quite expensive sort of levels, but you want a decent one that's still got good sound, it's still current, it still does Atmos, it does all the things that you want, and you don't want to spend a fortune, then go for the 2300W. Don't bother with the 2400H. It's just, you're just spending money for something you're very unlikely to use, and you're not going to notice the rest. The rest, physically, visually, it's identical. So, you know, you can save yourself quite a lot of money. You can use that money to get, you know, some budget Atmos speakers, like I got the Onkyo ones, and use that money that you've saved to get those, or to get some 4K Blu-rays, or even both. So yeah, there we are, guys. I hope you've liked the review. There is more to this review, because I'm explaining and going through sort of the AVR and showing it to you how I've got it set up. And I'll be showing the menu as well. So this is quite an extensive review. You know, obviously this is my personal opinion, and but you know, the general consensus is by a lot of reviewers is that the older version is still very current. The newer version is just more of an incremental upgrade. You know, it's only got the HEOS thing, so you know, is it really worth that extra 170 quid just to get that? You know, it's unlikely. So you know, I would thoroughly recommend getting the older version, the X2300, rather than the newer version. So yep, there's more to this. The second part of this review is coming up, and you will probably see that coming up on some link after this video. Okay guys, have a great week, and I will see you very soon. In fact, I'll see you in the second part of this video. Okay, bye bye.